I have a problem. Please send help. And those books, they're gonna fall. They did fall. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and today we are doing this series check-in. Now I got this idea from Abby. I will have a channel linked below. She does, I think it's quarterly check-ins with her series, what she's been reading, if she's decided to DNF, start new ones, what she's continued in. I thought it'd be really good to do because I definitely need to keep track of how many series I'm actually in the middle of. Spoiler alert, it's a lot. I was going to do this in June because I decided, you know what, let me just do it at the half points of the year, so in June, and then maybe like beginning of the year, January next year, and do it like that. That didn't happen because of all the moving content, so it did get pushed back, but we're here, we're having it done, and as of June 30th, these are all the series that I am in the middle of. Now it's going to be a long video. I did put a poll up on Discord asking, would you like me to go in depth into all the series I'm reading or just do the top priority ones and in-depth one. However, for those of you that do not have the time to watch this whole video, I'll just give you a quick breakdown of how it's going to work so you can skip to what you want. So we're going to start off with the stats, then we're going to go into book series I've DNF'd this year, book series I have finished this year, book series I am caught up with, so I've read everything that is currently out, and then finally the book series I'm in the middle of, and this is the one that is the biggest pile. For this I have ranked them into the ones I am most interested in continuing on with, so like the highest priority to the lowest priority, so that way if you don't want to watch me talking about every single book series I'm in the middle of, you can just skip off at any point. I completely understand. It's gonna be a long video. With that housekeeping out the way, let's get into the stats. So this year I have DNF'd 6 book series. I have finished 4, which, you know what, is not bad, could definitely be higher. I am up to date in 14 book series, but the part that's really painful is the book series that I'm just in the middle of, that there are other books released that I just haven't read yet, and that is a whopping 47. So we are in the middle of 61 book series. That doesn't include the 10 series that I've either DNF'd or finished. Like I say, it's gonna be a long video. Buckle in for the ride, grab yourselves a drink, and let's get to it. Okay, so we're gonna start off with the DNFs. I'm also going to start off with ebooks because if I don't own them physically, I've just written them down. So we'll start off with the ebooks. So the first one I decided to DNF this year is Her Soul series. This is by Harley LaRue. I read the first one, which I think was Her Soul to Take. You'll see it on the image here, and it is like a dark fantasy romance about this demon that makes a pact with this human girl. There's lots of stuff involved, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll carry on when I'm in the mood for something spicy like that, except, you know, I'm really not feeling it. I started the second book, kind of gave up with it, and just decided, you know what, it was fun for the first one, but realistically speaking, it's not a good book, it's not well written, and I'm not really interested in carrying on. That's a DNF. I've also decided to DNF Constable Twitten. This series is by Lynn Truss. I read the first one, which is A Shot in the Dark. Didn't enjoy this. This is a cozy murder mystery, and it's a shame because I do love cozy murder mysteries, but with this one in particular, I didn't like the writing style, I didn't enjoy the characters, so I've just decided I'm not going to carry on, and I actually ended up unhauling this book. I also have 2 more that I have started this year, decided to DNF, however I can't talk about them yet. They are coming out on Tuesdays of this month for those videos, and I do believe this one is going to be the last video, so it wouldn't have come out by the time this comes out, so I can't talk about it, but I have decided to DNF those, and I will tell you about that in the weekly vlog when that comes out. With books I own physically, I only have 2 more to talk about. One is a manga series, which is Sailor Moon. Now I do enjoy Sailor Moon just for the nostalgia, however I don't actually like the story, which is a weird one. Like, I loved the anime growing up. I don't mind the first, I think it's like 5 volumes of this, and then it just gets really weird. So I've decided, you know what, I'm happy to have a few on my shelves for that nostalgia, but I don't think I'm actually going to get round to reading this one. It's cute, it's fun, but you know, this is me as a 90s baby loving this when I was growing up, and I would watch it on the TV, so I'm happy I own a few volumes, I don't need to read them. And the other one that I've decided to DNF is Dangerous Remedy by Kat Dunn. This I think is just a trilogy and it's inspired by different things. We've got the French Revolution and Frankenstein. I've read the first and second book. However, as much as I do like it, I've got no inclination to pick up the third book. It is one of those, like, if it was available and it was in a charity shop, I might pick it up then secondhand, but otherwise I'm not really interested, and even then it'll probably sit on my shelves for ages. I'm still undecided whether I'm going to unhaul these because I do like the Frankenstein retelling and I do enjoy retellings of Gothic classic, but I'm also not going to continue with it. I just haven't got quite to that point of unhauling yet. It's probably going to happen when I next do a big unhaul and go through my shelves. It'll probably come off, but yeah, I mean, it was good. I think if you are looking for a young adult Frankenstein inspired that is set during the French Revolution, it was a fun time. I do like the characters. It's just I've got so many other books that I want to read and other series to continue in that I just decided, you know what, being honest with myself, I'm not going to continue. Nice and easy. Now we're going to move on to the ones that I have finished. So the only ebook series that I finished this year is Letters of Enchantment by Rebecca Ross. This started off with Divine Rivals, and I did really like the first book. It was portrayed as an enemies to lovers romance. It's not really enemies to lovers, it's what it says in the title. They're rivals to lovers. We have these two people that are working at this newspaper company. At the same time, there is this war going on between these gods. It is based on, I think it's World War II, so you have that in the background. You could honestly have taken out all of the magical elements to this and just had a World War II set historical romance book and it would have been great. Like, the magic doesn't really add too much. The magic comes in more in the second book, and although I liked the second book, I wasn't that bothered. I was a bit disappointed by it. Decided I'm not actually going to get it for my shelves, but it is a series I have finished this year and I know lots of people do genuinely love it, and I really did enjoy that first book. I don't know, the second one I found it a little bit long, a little bit drawn out, and I just wasn't as interested in it. We have a manga series I finished this year, which is Tokyo Ghoul. Oh my god, this took me so long to finish. This is a 14 volume series, and we're following a main character who has one foot in the human world and one foot in the ghoul world. Ghouls, I've always explained them as like zombies, but they look like humans. They're not like decomposing or anything. They just need human flesh to survive. They have other extra abilities around them. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed some of the plot threads of this and I wish they were developed more. Overall, the ending didn't quite land for me. However, this is a series I'm keeping hold of because my partner wants to read it. I then also finished Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. So the first book, I thought it was initially going to be a standalone. Then he came out with a prequel, which I have read, which was Bookshops and Bone Dust, and I really liked it. I did prefer Legends and Lattes. Now, there hasn't been, or at least as far as I'm aware, another sequel announced, but the way it did leave off in Bookshops and Bone Dust, it is a possibility that there could be later on. However, for now, everything's finished as far as I'm concerned. So unless they announce a whole nother book, there's been nothing announced yet. Again, I could be slightly wrong in that. Considering how few series I finished this year, I'm counting it. But this is really, really cute. It's a cozy fantasy, and we're following Viv, who is an orc and has decided that her fighting days are over and all she wants to do is open up a little coffee shop in a place that no one's ever heard of coffee. It is so cute and cozy. I really, really enjoyed this one. And then the final series I finished, again, this is another hesitant one to say that this series is finished, which is Crescent City by Sarah J Maas. I read the third book that came out earlier this year, and technically I think this is just meant to be a trilogy, but it's Sarah J Maas and she has surprised us in the past with continuing on with series. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with spin-off books in this world, but for now the trilogy is done, so I'm going to count that again as part of the finished series. This one is Sarah J Maas's adult fantasy series. It is an urban fantasy and we are following Bryce. Bryce ends up being tasked to investigate these series of murders with Fallen Angel Hunt. The first book really is the best book, and it is such a shame that the second and third book just get progressively worse. However, I still really enjoy them because I do have those rose-tinted glasses when it comes to Sarah J Maas. I just like her character work. I find them really fun and engaging and easy to read. Can I say they're the best books written? No, but I enjoy them and I will continue to read what she puts out. I am part of the problem, not the solution when it comes to this. Okay, so that's it. That's the smallest piles done. Now we're going to move on to all the book series I am up to date in currently. So everything that has been published so far, I have read in the series. So the first one is the ebook, which is Creatures of Flynn series by Mark Macarecha. Mark is a lovely person. These are indie published fantasy and they are giving cozy fantasy vibes. The first book is Mordax and I really enjoyed this one. Recently read Kestrian when he sent that to me and honestly I'm really enjoying it, and I do believe this series is going to continue and it's just going to get more and more interesting. Influences from folklore as well, and I'm just having a great time with it. So if you're looking for an indie cozy fantasy but with slightly more plotline to it, give this one a try. The first book in particular, meet this cute little village that's going on, but sinister things are happening and we have our main character who's got to investigate it all and try to find out what's actually happening. It's really good. I enjoy it. It's kind of like a cozy mystery with fantasy elements and it's just really fun. Back to Sarah J. Maas though, we have A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I've read everything that is out currently. This is fantasy romance. I don't think I need to talk about it. It's everywhere. We are going to be getting another book. I think it's next. I actually don't know. But that is going to be continuing on from this series. Initially, this was a trilogy. Then it's got continued with following Feyre's different sisters. I enjoy it. It's fun. Again, not the best books, but they're a good time. We then have the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, starting off with The Way of Kings. I've read the first 4 books. I think it's 4 books that are out. The 5th book is coming out later this year. It's coming out in December. I really want to reread these in time for that 5th book. However, I'm not in a massive fantasy mood at the minute, so I don't think that's actually going to happen. And as much as I really am looking forward to that 5th book, it's probably going to be a while before I actually get around to reading it. I love this series. It is an epic high fantasy series. It is so expansive. The very, very base plot line, especially in this first book, is we're following a few different characters that get caught up in this war in different ways. This war is between the Alethi and the Parshendi. And the Parshendi, like, they signed a treaty, and on the day of signing the treaty, the Parshendi then killed the Alethi king, and they've been at war ever since. That's really, really basic. There is so much more to this. There is expansive magic systems going on. There is so much. It is a fantastic series. And yes, I do need to actually reread it and just get to that 5th book in time, but it's probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be later in next year that I actually get around to doing that, but it's fine. It's a good series. Then we have Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. The reality is we're probably never going to get that 3rd book. So we have the first 2 books that are out. We've had 2 little novellas to go alongside this. This is another epic fantasy, and we're following Kvoth, who his parents are killed. He is then running the streets trying to survive, manages to get into this school, and lots of things go on from there. I really like it. I think it's really good. I love the writing in this, but it's been such a long time. I just don't think we're ever going to get that 3rd book. And so part of me is like, I don't want to reread this series until I know we're going to get that 3rd book, but I like it. It's good. It used to be one of my favourite fantasy books ever, but I've read a lot of fantasy books since then, and yeah, it's good though. I do enjoy it. If you are looking for another epic fantasy and you don't mind the fact that the 3rd book's not out, give it a try. If you don't want to read it because that 3rd book's not out, completely understandable. I hope you don't mind, I'm just doing brief overviews. We've got so many books to talk about that I can't go in depth with these. But we have Ninth House by Leah Bardugo. I was really hesitant going into this when I first read it because I didn't really like her YA stuff. However, this I really like. This is her first adult fantasy. It's kind of dark academia, gothic leaning. We're following our main character, Alec, who gets enrolled into Yale. Very unlikely, but only for one reason, and the reason is she can see ghosts, because at Yale there is lots of secret societies that is to do with the occult. I really enjoyed it. I've read the 2nd book. I actually need to get the 2nd book. I still haven't done that, but I read it as an ebook when it came out, and I'm really looking forward to the 3rd one. I think the first one was better than the 2nd book, but I'm intrigued to see where that 3rd one's gonna go. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this. I got a really nice frayed edged edition and I just think it looks gorgeous. But yeah, this is a really good book. I enjoyed it. Slightly more horror leaning, still got the dark academia because of the setting and everything. It's just really good. I really enjoyed that one. We have a series that I went crazy for last year, and that is Engines of Empire, the Age of Uprising series by R.S. Ford. Loved this. I've read the 2 books that are currently out. I don't know when we're getting the 3rd book. The 2nd book was only released last year, so we've probably got a little bit of a wait, and I loved this so much. It is one of my new favorite fantasy series. Like, I just became quickly obsessed, and this one was gifted to me by Naomi, so thank you, Naomi, for putting this on my radar because I love this. It is so underrated. More people need to read it. It's just so good. But in this book, we are following this one particular family who is part of this guild. You see all the different perspectives within that family. Connell, who is the eldest son, he is sent off to get some battle training. When he gets there, he is swiftly put in his place because he's just another posh toff come to earn a few stripes. He's not actually going to do anything, but he sees what the war is, what's actually going on, and that's a really good perspective to follow. Tyretta is a sorceress with the ability to channel the power of Firestone. She is expected to like marry and do these things, and she really doesn't want to. She ends up rebelling a lot outside of what her mum wants. She gets sent off to live with some other family to learn to be a little bit more decorum, to have more decorum, but she gets embroiled with a whole different plot line that's going on there. I really liked it. I think Tyretta was one of my favourite plot lines to read. Really heartbreaking at times, but I loved it. And then we do have Folren, who is a talented artificer. He ends up getting caught up in this kind of murder mystery going on, and we also follow their mum's perspective, who is the head of this guild. It's so good. It's complex, it's fun, I loved it. It was just so interesting and so well done, and I really loved the way it went. I can't wait for that third book. Like, honestly, it couldn't come soon enough. We then have The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. I recently read the second book, The Book That Broke the World, this year, and I did enjoy it. This is my favourite series by Mark Lawrence. I've tried other series of his, and this is honestly my favourite. We're following two main characters. We have Evara and Livara, and Evara has lived his whole life trapped in this library with his brothers and sisters, and Livara has lived her life out on the dust until right at the start of this book her family is killed and she is sent and like taken into this city, and she ends up getting a job in the library. I really love this. I love how the stories combine. I love how it looks at so many different things. It looks at war, it looks at what it is to be on opposing sides of the war, and how who your enemy is really does depend on what side of the line you stand. Are they actually evil? And there's just so much that this book explores. I tabbed it. This is the Lot Library edition. I didn't bother getting the Lot Library edition for the second book because it was the exact same, so I didn't bother with that. But yeah, I really had a great time with this. I have so many tabs. I went to town on this. Like, I had such a good time, and I really liked the second book. It takes off very soon after the events in this first book, and I loved it. I thought it was such a fantastic book series. Definitely his best work yet. Okay, we then have God Killer by Hannah Kenner. I read Sunbringer earlier this year as well, and I really enjoyed this. This is really good. It is a short fantasy series, but there is so much that you can do. But the premise of this one is we're following a god killer, Kissen, who, well, she's a god killer. Her family was killed by devotees to a god. Ever since, she has been wreaking her revenge, killing off gods left, right and centre, which is a good thing that it's sanctioned because gods are no longer allowed to be around. There are gods over little things, like your smallest belief in something can bloom into a god, and the more belief and prayers that they receive, the stronger and stronger they become. And the reality is they're not human. They view things differently to us, and so they can end up being very kind of wicked. I'm gonna say evil, but to them it is just who they are. Like, they just don't see things the way we do. Life is different meaning to them. But I really enjoyed this one. The premise is that Kissen comes across this god that she cannot kill, and she ends up teaming up with a few different people to go along their way. I really enjoyed it. I loved the second book. It's really good fun series. Like, I think if you're looking to get into high fantasy but you'll feel a little bit nervous of it, but I feel like this is a good one to bridge that gap. This is one I'm not sure if I'm going to continue. Like, I will. Okay, let me start again. So we have The Will of the Many by James Islington. So this is the only book that's out currently, and I am thinking to continue on. However, I think I'm going to wait to buy a copy and just like read it, see if I can get it on Kindle or from my library or something before I decide if I'm actually going to physically continue on, like buying the books and continuing on. This is a book that had a lot of hype around it. I spoke about it in my mid-year freak out tag where I was like, I was disappointed. I understand what it's doing. We have this main character whose family and everything was annihilated by this empire that's trying to take over. There is a magic system that's all about giving up your will to those above you, who can then use it to do other things. And it does talk a lot about hierarchy, the Roman Empire. It draws a lot of themes on that, and it's a story where we have our main character that is going to take them down from the inside. However, our main character is just boring. Like, he's a doormat, and I just think there's books that do it better. So I just wanted more from it, and hopefully the second book gives me more. This one was definitely a look into, like, he's at this school to learn things, and like it was okay. Again, this is one that is much loved, so you've probably heard about it, but I just think there are other books that have done it better and done it darker and grittier in a way that I prefer. A book series I love, we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I've also read Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands, and I do think we're getting the third book. Is it next year? But I'm looking forward to that. This is a cozy fantasy. We are following Emily. Emily is a professor in fairy, and she is setting out to complete the world's first encyclopedia of fairies, document all these different fairies. And she is into the last bit that she needs to get this reclusive type of fairy. However, her colleague, Professor Bumblebee, or Wendell Bumblebee, he decides to come along for the ride, and she is not happy with this. He is very charismatic, very endearing. Everybody seems to love him, and Emily is the complete opposite. She is very socially awkward. She really struggles with these sort of things, and I just loved it. I loved their relationship. I love seeing them come together. This is like a light academia fantasy, and it is so cute and fun. Okay, a book that I didn't think was going to be a series but now is The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. There is going to be the second book, which comes out, I think it's in August, which is following our main character's sister. So in this one, it's a YA fantasy. We have our main character who has decided that she is going to marry the king, kill the king so that she can become the queen, and sets out to do this. It's really fun. I really enjoyed it. This is one that I've reread a couple times. I just have fun with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the second book and seeing how that's gonna go. It's definitely more of like a companion to it rather than a second book, because it will continue on from the events of this, but because we're following sister, we're not seeing these characters. So it's kind of like Sarah J Maas with A Court of Silver Flames. Like, it continues on from the original trilogy, but we're following a different sister. I'm looking forward to it though. I have pre-ordered this second book. We then have Richard Osman's The Thursday Murder Club. There are 4 books out currently that I've read and really enjoyed. We are going to continue on with the series, and Richard Osman has confirmed that. However, we're just taking a bit of a break. Where we've left it with those particular characters was a really good point to leave it, but for now this is all there's going to be, but there will be other books in the future. This is a cozy murder mystery series. I loved it. This is so much fun. We're following 4 friends who all live in this retirement home, and they meet up every Thursday to solve cold cases until one day there's an actual murder at their residential home and they decide to get involved. It is so much fun. I love our characters. We also get more beyond just a mystery in this. We really get to feel for the characters, and it follows different plot themes, and some of them are really heartbreaking, but it's just so well done. Okay, we've got 2 more in the ones that I'm up to date in. So we have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the first book and the only one that is out currently, and this is a cozy fantasy murder mystery, and this one has very heavy Sherlock Holmes vibes. We're following a character, what was his name? Dinos, and he is an assistant to Anna, who is our Sherlock Holmes. They get called out to this murder that's happened where this tree has erupted from somebody's body, and they're like, what now? This is really fun. It's really interesting world. I like the fact that we have all these weird, kind of like Annihilation, because it's all biology based weird things that change people in different ways, but mix that with Pacific Rim with Sherlock Holmes, and that's kind of what you get in this, and it works. This was really fun. I really enjoyed solving this. This one was part of the Discord book club pick, so if you don't know, I do have Discord and we do a book club every single month. This is the one that won recently. Was it for June? Yes, it was, and I had such a good time with this. It was brilliant. I mean, clearly you can see how much I enjoyed it because I've tabbed it to hell, but this was just so fun. So if you are looking for a cozy mystery but you want it in fantasy, this is the one to read. It was brilliant. this pile is wobbling, but we've got one more to go. Evocation by S.T. Gibson. This is the first book in the Summoner's Circle series, and again, this is the only one that's out currently. I really enjoyed this one. So this one is definitely more of a romance. So this is urban setting, and we're following three main characters, but the main one that we follow is David. And David, he is someone that can commune with ghosts, except he's now just been threatened by this potential devil, and he's like, I have no idea what to do, and the only person he can trust is his ex. But to get through to his ex, he has to go through his ex's current wife, and he's like, I don't know what to do. And they end up banding together and helping him. There is magic in this, but it is, I feel like it's there, but the main emphasis is on this love story that's going on between these three people, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very entertaining read. I read this in one day for my relax and readathon, and I think it lends itself really well to a readathon book because it's entertaining, there is enough going on to keep you hooked, and like I say, the romance was really good, and I enjoyed seeing all of that grow. I did tab a little bit, not loads. I didn't end up with loads of annotations, but this was fun. Do I think it's S.T. Gibson's best work? No, I actually preferred A Dowry in Blood in terms of writing style, but this is definitely the most entertaining, so I would give this one a read. Okay, so now we get to move on to the biggest pile. It's actually in 3 different piles. These are the ones I have done in order of the ones I am most interested in continuing on with, so high priority. I keep forgetting that word. Let's start off with the ebooks though, and again, I've done this in priority order of the ebooks. We have the Veronica Speedwell series by Dana Rayborn. This is again another kind of cozy murder mystery. It's set in, I want to say it's like Victorian times, I'm not entirely sure, but it's kind of got that sort of vibe, in London, and we are following Veronica. And Veronica, in the first book where we meet her, is taken to London by this man who meets her after her aunt has just passed away, her home's been broken into, and he's like, you're in danger, you need to come with me. And she's like, well, I was going to London anyway, so sure, why not? You can do it so I don't have to pay for the travel. She is a very spirited person, has definitely more modern ways of thinking than what is accepted for at this time. She gets pulled along, put with this man's friend called Stoker, and has said to Stoker, look, just look after her, I'll be back. Stoker is very unhappy with this, but he's a taxidermist, and she is instantly intrigued because she is a lepidoporus, a butterfly person. And so they have kind of common interests, so they are sitting chatting around, and then it turns out that this man, who Veronica still doesn't know his name, is then murdered, and they get caught up in trying to solve this murder, and from there each book they have a different murder mystery to solve. I really enjoy their relationship dynamic. I just think they're a great fun couple to follow, and it's really entertaining mysteries. I've only read the first 2. I was initially planning to read 1 book a month, but that kind of got derailed, but I am looking forward to continuing on with this series. It is really, really fun. We then have the Murderbot series by Martha Wells. I've read the first one, which is All Systems Red. These are kind of novellas where we're following Murderbot, who all he wants to do is watch his TV programs, and instead he can't. He has to do all these other things. It was really endearing, really fun. It is a cozy sci-fi, and I definitely want to continue on with it. We also have another cozy sci-fi, which is Wayfarer, and that's by Becky Chambers, the first book being A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. And again, this is just another one that I really, really loved. We are on this ship, the Wayfarer, and we meet all these different crew members, and we just see kind of like their lives, their interactions, their relationships. I know the second book doesn't follow the same characters, but kind of like side characters you meet. I'm really looking forward to it. I definitely want to continue on with this one sooner rather than later. So those are the 3 ebooks that are a priority for me to continue on with. It's probably going to be ones that I eventually get physical copies of because I enjoy them so much. We then have Beartown by Frederick Backman. This is a book I read recently and really enjoyed. It's a heartbreaking book at the same time. So we're in this little town where hockey, ice hockey, means everything to this town. It's a rundown town, and they need the juniors to win this game so that they can get investors, so that this town can actually just come back to being what it used to be. And so there's so much pressure, and then something really awful happens. You see the whole fallout, and the way it's done is you get perspectives of a lot of people within this town, so you really get to know them. I thought it was really, really good, and I do definitely want to continue on with this. I would like to get a physical copy of the book and continue on, because this is one I've read most recently out of the 4 that I've just mentioned. It's probably going to be lower on the list than the others, but but I really did enjoy it. We then have another cozy murder mystery series, which is the Ernest Mystery by Benedict Brown. The first one I read is The Mystery of Mistletoe Hall, which I read at Christmas time because it was just a fun Christmas mystery, and I really enjoyed it. It was really, really fun and good, and it's definitely one, like, if you like your Agatha Christie's, things like that, I think you would really like this one. There is a lot of books in the series. There are a couple of standalones if you just want to give them a try before actually committing to them, but it is a series that I would like to get back into. We're following Ernest, and I think it's his... is it his uncle or his grandfather? One of the two. It's a relation of his that used to be a detective, and he's kind of training Ernest up to be able to solve these different mysteries, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So this is definitely a cozy murder mystery series that I would like to continue. And then the last one we have is really low on the list. I don't know when I'm going to get around to continuing this one, and that is the Kings of Sin series by Anna Juan. This is a contemporary romance series. I read the first one, which was King of Wrath. It was fun. It was entertaining. Don't really think it's going to be a high priority for me to continue anytime soon, but it was entertaining nonetheless. I think the way it's going to be is like they're all kind of companions. You all meet each other. They're like side characters within one another's book. In this one we met this woman that needed to marry. They had this like arranged marriage going on. The sins relate to the male protagonist, and in this one his sin is wrath, and we're just seeing them overcome this and what it actually is. And you know, it's rich people drama, and you know, I don't mind that, but yeah, I don't think this is a priority one for me to read, but I'll probably pick them up every so often. With that being said, let's get into the high priority series that I want to continue that I own physically. So the first one, we knew it was going to happen. That's the Locked Tomb series, starting off with Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. I loved this. I have not stopped talking about it. I read the first one April, and I do plan on reading Nona in August. I love them. They're really good, they're really fun. It is a sci-fi series where we have lesbian necromancers in space, and it's really fun and really complex, but brilliant. It's just such a good series. Please read it. We then have Into the Vampire by Anne Rice. I do need to continue on with this series, and I do own the second book. I've been talking about it a lot. This is one of my all-time favourite books ever. I love this. This was such a good book. Like, I adored everything about it. The writing was sumptuous. It is just beautiful, and we are following a vampire that's given an interview, and we're seeing his life, how he got changed and everything. The second book, we're following the person that actually changed him. I can't wait. This was so good. I loved it so much. Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer is a book I reread, I think it was in May. Really enjoyed my reread of this. I really want to continue on. This is a really weird sci-fi book, and you really don't know what's going on. You really can't trust people with what they say, with what's happening. It's a weird book, but I really loved it. We've just had an announcement for the fourth book that's coming out later this year, and I really want to read the first three so I can read that fourth book. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to continuing on with this series. We then have a cozy murder mystery series. I'm holding up the second one because I don't own the first one. First one is The Marlowe Murder Club. It was such a good book. I enjoyed it so much. I read it on Kindle and I had such a great time. When I saw this one for £3, I had to pick it up. Really want to continue on with this series soon. Cozy murder mystery for fans of Richard Osman and any other cozy murder mysteries. Honestly, it's fantastic, and I loved it. It was so good. Don't need to say anything else. It was brilliant. The Wayward Children series by Shauna Maguire. First one is Every Heart a Doorway. I only have the most recent one to read, but I just haven't bought it, which is really odd because normally as soon as these comes out I read them. They are little novellas that are portal fantasies, and the way they work is odd numbers continue on the story, and then even numbers are prequels to different things that's happening. I love them. I think they're really good. It has different influences from other things. We've had Hansel and Gretel, Dracula and Frankenstein, and a few other different stories that we've had influences from. I love it. I love these books so much. They are so much fun, and I really cannot wait to get the most recent book and actually just read it. Like, I don't know why I haven't done that yet. We then have Agatha Christie Miss Marple series, so I'm reading them in series order. Technically these are all standalones, but I am treating it as a series that I'm working my way through. I have read quite a few. I'm now up to A Pocket Full of Rye, so I've read the first 6 books, which is pretty good. But yeah, I really want to continue on with this. Obviously, Agatha Christie, cozy murder mystery. I don't think I need to say anything else, but I am focusing on the Miss Marple series first. We then have Holly Black's The Stolen Heir. This is like a spin-off to the Folk of the Air trilogy. I've read the first one, I have the next one, I just haven't read it yet, and I don't have an excuse because this will be so easy to then finish because it's only a duology. Definitely want to read it soon. I really enjoyed this. I know not everybody liked it because they're like, oh, it's not as good as Folk of the Air. I really enjoyed it. I liked that it was slightly different. I liked that we're following Wren, who was a side character in the Folk of the Air, which I was so intrigued by, and I really like her story. I really enjoyed this one. It is more of a traveling book, so there were some slow moments, but I just thought it was a great time, so I need to read that second book ASAP. We then also have another series which I'm going to be continuing very soon as I get my hands on the paperback copy of the second book. But this is Only a Monster by Vanessa Len, and the second book is Never a Hero. Really enjoyed this because we are following the monster of the story, and it really questions who is a hero, who is a monster. It is young adult, but it's so good. Like, it was surprising how good this was, and I talk about that all the time. But it also has time travel magic in it as well, and it's really good. Another one that I'm continuing as soon as I get hold of the paperback, we have A Marvelous Light by Freya Mask. I have read the first 2 books in this series. These are fantasy mystery romances, which is a genre blend. I don't know, it just works. 3 different genres going on, but it all works, and they are queer romances, and each one follows different main characters, but they're all connected to each other. Really, really enjoy it. So this one, we're following Robin, who is struggling. He needs to get a job to save his family because his parents have died, and they were really stupid with their money. So he gets a job in the government, and it's the job with their magical side, and he's like, wait, what, there's magic? Magic's a thing? And he then gets caught up in this murder mystery plot. It's so much fun. I love the romance. It's great. So yeah, if you're looking for a fantasy mystery romance, pick up this series. It is fantastic. A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. This is the Lady Trent series. I really enjoyed this. I've read the first 3. I then just stopped reading it because I was like, I love these so much. I know I'm going to love them. I'm going to hoard them, which is ridiculous, but I love this. I was always intrigued by these because of the cover, but I'm not a massive person that likes dragons in fantasy books. But then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to give it a try, and I'm so pleased I did. The setting is like Jane Austen. Think Jane Austen times, the sensibilities from that time period, the way they talk in this, very similar, but then add dragons to it. Lady Trent is a dragon naturalist, and she really had to fight to get to this position, and these are her memoirs where she's looking back on her life, and I love them. They are so good. I'm happy that I've been able to get other people to read this series. It is such a great series. I actually just need to finish the series and stop putting it off. Another one I really am eagerly anticipating and waiting for the paperback to come out for the second book, and that is Empire of the Vampire by J. Kristoff. This is a book that surprised me. I know I spoke about that in my mid-year freakout tag, but this book genuinely surprised me because I didn't think I liked J. Kristoff as an author, but look at this. Look at this. I loved this. This is fantastic. I really can't wait for that second book. I don't want to get it in hardback when I own the first one in paperback, so I'm waiting for it to come out in paperback. Really looking forward to reading it. This one also has illustrations in. So pretty. It is gorgeous. I love this so much. It is absolutely amazing. I just had such a good time with this. Fantastic. And I know I haven't really said what it's about, but it's like we're following this silver saint, and he has been captured, and it's him telling his story, and we follow it across 2 different timelines. One from when he's younger, finds out that he's a silver saint, which is half human, half vampire, and then one from when he's older and what's happened and how he has become captured, and it is heartbreaking and beautiful, and I loved it. A couple of manga that is a priority for me to continue. We have Moriarty the Patriot. This is like a Sherlock Holmes inspired series, but we're following Moriarty, so Sherlock Holmes' nemesis, how he became Moriarty and the things that they did to one another. Really looking forward to continuing on with that one. I've read the first 2. And then we have Promised Neverland. This is really good. I really enjoy it. We're following these group of children who are at this orphanage, and everything seems absolutely wonderful until they discover the sinister truth behind this orphanage. Is great. I think I'm up to number 4. No, I've read number 4. I need number 5. But yeah, really looking forward to continuing on with that series. It is so good. It's probably one of my favourite manga series ever, but I do think Moriarty has the potential for that as well. Okay, so those were the highest priority reads for me to continue on with. Now we're going to do the ones that are like, I want to continue on with these. We're just going to progressively work our way down to the least priority. So we do have the Barrow Cormorant series. So starting off with The Traitor. This is by Seth Dickinson. It is an older fantasy series, and this is the book that I say is better than The Will of the Many. It's got very similar things. We're following Barrow Cormorant, and her homeland was taken over by this empire. Barrow decides that she is going to take them down from the inside. We see a little bit of her at school in this, where she's learning their ways, but then we see her get her first assignment working for this government and the things that she does, and oh my god, it is brutal. It is amazing. I love it. The things that she does is so questionable. It really does question, do the means justify the ends? It's brilliant, and I think that's why I just couldn't get on with The Will of the Many, because I was wanting more of this. I thought, oh okay, so that book is focusing on the school, which is a little bit we got in this. We're really good to see more in depth, and it was just so boring. The main character was just a wet cloth, like it just wasn't worth it. I'm sorry, I'm so harsh on that book, but I had such high hope. But this one is brilliant, so if you like that book but you want something darker, this one is really good. The only reason why it's lower in the series to continue on with is because I am in that fantasy reading slump. I do want to continue. I want to at least read the second book this year, but I am in a slight fantasy reading slump, so I'm not going to push through when I know I'm not feeling it. That's why all the other ones that are higher priority are sci-fi, or they're mixed with something else, or I'm waiting on the paperback, so it's not going to come out for a while. This one I own the whole series, but I also know because of my fantasy reading slump, it's not going to be one I get too soon. I've been talking forever and we still have quite a few to go. I'm sorry. Clearly, I need to stop starting series. I'm just going to go on a quick tangent here. I prepared all of these books yesterday, and this morning I was still remembering book series that I'm in the middle of and adding to it. I have a problem. Please send help. Okay, we then have The Master of Sorrows by Justin Call. I read this book. I own the second book. I don't think the third book's out yet, which is nice. I've got a bit of time, but I want to reread this one and then read the second book. And this one is a series where we're following a person that becomes the villain in a story, and I really like that. It's kind of got the classic fantasy setup. We're following this person who has to take part in some trials. There's like, this is why I need to reread it, because I know the story. We've got a main character who is disabled. He is missing half his arm. However, being disabled in this world is seen as really bad. If you're disabled, then you are not wanted by God, or it's like kind of the premise. I need to reread this one because I think I'm going to enjoy it more upon reread. And I do like the concept of seeing a villain's origin story. And is he really the villain? I love books that play around with that. We then have the Dandelion Dynasty series. The first one is The Grace of Kings. I've only read this one. This one felt like a bit like a prequel. It was like a series of vignettes of this people that we're following, and I did enjoy this one. This one was another, I think it ended up being a book club pick for Discord as well, actually. Did I write it down? Yes, in September 2023. I did enjoy this one. I have been told that the second book is so much better than the first, and it gets really expansive. I have spilt something on this. That's not good. I am really looking forward to reading this. I really like the writing style. I think it was really beautiful. Again, we're just in a fantasy reading slump, so hence why a lot of my fantasy ones are in the mid. I will continue on with these eventually when I'm back in the mood for fantasy, but that was really good. I honestly didn't talk much about this one. We're seeing this emperor who has managed to unite all these islands together under a single banner, but now he's on his deathbed, and you're seeing lots of people kind of wanting to change the way things are. It's all about politics and alliances, and it was good, but it did feel like a prequel. We then have a manga series, Dead Man's Wonderland. This is one that I was reading with my partner. We've just kind of stopped reading it. Don't know why. We just did. We will get back to it eventually. This one is a prison manga series where we're following a prison in Japan, I think it is. We've got people that have to like fight to the death for the entertainment of other people, and we have this person that has been wrongfully imprisoned, and there's a lot of other stuff going on. It's a fun series. More cozy mysteries, but this one with a paranormal element. This is The Stranger Times by C.K. McDonald. I've spoken about this series a lot. I've read the first 2 books. I own the third. Haven't got around to reading it. Really need to, but this is just really fun. So we're following a few different characters, but they all work for The Stranger Times, which is this newspaper that reports on the weird and wonderful things. But what if they're actually true. We have each book covering a different mystery but with an overarching plot line. Really looking forward to continuing on with it. Again, this is another book that I've spoke about enough. I've actually got some of you to read it, which is fantastic, and honestly is so entertaining. We then have like a cozy thriller, and that is Finley Donovan is Killing It by Ellie Cosmano. I read this first one, I loved it, I had so much fun with it. I need to read the second book. I don't have an excuse not to read it, I own it, I just haven't done it yet. But this was really fun. We're following Finley, who's going through a really tough divorce. She's also a struggling author, and one day she's meeting up with her agent and she's talking about how she's really tired of killing off people in the same way because she's like a crime romance author, but someone overhearing it gets the wrong idea and think she's a hit woman, and things go from there. It's really, really fun. More cozy murder mysteries. We have Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I only have, I think it's 5 liars to read of this. I was waiting for it to come out in paperback. It did. I then just haven't picked it up. This is a young adult cozy murder mystery series. In this one, we are following Stevie, who wants nothing more than to be like Sherlock Holmes. In the first 3 books, we have mini mysteries that then link up to this one big mystery across the first 3, and then the 4th book and the 5th book are separate mysteries that do continue on in timeline but don't continue like have overarching plot lines. They're all wrapped up in one book. Maureen Johnson also has a newer book coming out. I think it's in August. I will have to check that. I know I did that recently in my anticipated releases video. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading 5 Liars and continuing on. Like, I just love a cozy murder mystery. We then have a book series that I've recently read all the books I own, and that is Trial of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Tooley. This is why it's kind of lower in the list, because I've recently read the second book, which was Rule of the Aurora King, and I do enjoy it. It is like Throne of Glass mixed with A Court of Thorns and Roses. I do like it. I think it's really fun and entertaining. I need to get the 3rd book. That's recently been published, but it's a good time. Fantasy romance. Don't need to focus on it too much, but it's entertaining, and those books, they're gonna fall. They did fall. Okay, well, give me 2 seconds while I tidy this up. We saved it, they're back. So we have the last few books to talk about in this like mid-range pile. Okay, so we have Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This is not a good series at all, but it is fun and entertaining, and it is just rich people drama and the most toxic relationship going. So the first book we follow Magnolia Parks, the second book we follow Daisy Hates, and they happen at the same time as one another. They just see it from different perspectives. I liked it. I have the most recent book out. I just need to actually read it. We then have The Secret Society of Tea and Treason by India Holton. This is actually the 3rd book, which I didn't realise when reading it. You can read them as standalones because they are side characters from each other that you then meet. I do want to read the 1st and 2nd book and continue on with this series. It is a really ridiculous fantasy romance series, but it's also more cozy leaning and just silly. It's fun. It is ridiculous. Oh no. That reminds me of another series I'm actually in the middle of, which is Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall, although that one I am up to date in, but that's another Regency romance with fantasy elements, really fun and entertaining. The 2nd book is not out just yet, but that was really fun as well. So there's another one for you. Told you, I keep finding series that I'm in the middle of. So technically we're now in the middle of what, 62 series, because I remembered that one. Moving on, we have a young adult series, which Anatomy of Love Story by Dana Schwartz. This one was originally a standalone. Now we have a 2nd book to it. I liked it. Kind of reminiscent of things like Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerry Maniscalco. So if you enjoy those sort of books, you'll probably enjoy this. We have our main character Hazel, who is trying to push out against the confines of society, because this is set in 1817, and she wants to become a doctor, except this is at the time where that's not seen as a profession for women, and she has to try and go against these things. And they're like, okay, well, if you can sit the exam without ever actually been sat in a lecture, never actually taken part in any autopsies, then yes, we'll train you. And so she ends up working with somebody who is a body snatcher to try and pass this exam, and they actually end up stumbling upon a plot that they need to solve. We have a cozy murder mystery, Shady Hollow by Janu Black. This really is cozy murder mystery, like the coziest of cozy. We're following animals in this wood, and we've got to try and solve these murder mysteries that happen. It was really fun, really cute. We'll probably continue on that at some point, but I don't love it as much as some of the other cozy fantasies that I've read. Similar, we have The Pig in the Derby Hat by M.A. Knights. This is an indie published book. It's tiny. It takes you literally like less than an hour to read, but it's paranormal cozy mystery, and again, it's one that, you know, if I've got a spare moment, I'll continue on with the series. Right now now I'm more prioritizing my other cozy murder mystery. Okay, now we're into the lowest priority books. We have Solo Leveling. This is a manhwa and I do enjoy it. My partner got me into this because he loves this. I've read the first 2 volumes. I will continue on eventually. It's about this character who, I mean, it says levels up. We have these people that can go into these portal worlds to fight these monsters, to stop them from coming into our world and wrecking things. He is seen as the weakest of the weak, except something happens to him that now enables him to level up in a way that nobody else can. We have Lord of the Rings. So I've read The Fellowship of the Ring. I need to continue on with the rest of it. And I did like this one. I actually listened to this on audiobook. I thought it was fantastic. I did have a plan for the second book. However, I've not had the time to do that. I will get to it eventually. Again, not in a massive fantasy mood right now, but yeah, eventually I will get to this, I promise. And I'm not going to talk about what that is because it's well known. I think most people know what Lord of the Rings is. We then have a middle grade, which is the only middle grade I have, which is City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. V. Schwab, and I really liked this first one. I read it a good few years ago and I was like, I'll continue on with this eventually. It's just cozy to me. We have this girl who can see ghosts and her parents are actually ghosts, not hunters, but like paranormal investigators. It's really fun and I liked it, and because it's middle grade, I just see it as like this cute cozy time. Eventually I'll continue on, but it's not high priority. We then have a young adult sci-fi, which is Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I read this first one and I really enjoyed it. I have the second book, I just haven't continued on, so definitely need to continue on with that. This kind of reminded me of Guardians of the Galaxy. At the very end, a little bit of Annihilation. Like, it was just a fun time. We're following a group of cadets and the main captain of this group is late to this announcement ceremony where he gets to choose his group to be his crew, except he's late because he's busy rescuing this girl and he ends up with the group of misfits and you're seeing them come together. It's kind of like found family and stuff, but in space. It's really fun. Need to continue. Don't have a reason not to. We then have The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams, and I did really enjoy this one. This is a really good fantasy book. I think it's an underrated fantasy book. It definitely deserves a little bit more love, but it's also one that I was going to continue on with this very soon after I read the first book, but then I struggled getting hold of the second book, and it's now at the point where I'm like, okay, I'll read it eventually. But it was very interesting. I liked it. We have Faye involved, and at the end of this book it took a turn that I wasn't really expecting, and I just thought it was really, really interesting. I would like to reread this one and then continue on, but probably going to finish out some of the other fantasy series I have going first before I do that. We then have A Darker Shade of Magic by V. Schwab, which I wasn't sure whether to put in here because technically this trilogy is complete. They just had a new book come out which is kind of continuing on from the first trilogy, which is more of a spin-off, and we're following different characters. So I'm going to put it as this. The reason why I haven't continued on with it straight away is because it came out in hardback. I own them all in paperback, so I want the paperback to match. And again, I'm not in a massive fantasy mood. There are other fantasy books I will get to first, and because it's like a continuation of a trilogy, I'm seeing it as it's not a massive priority for me to continue. It's not like this left off on a cliffhanger because I liked the way this series wrapped up. So I am intrigued to continue on with it, but also I have other things that I'm prioritizing first. Obviously, if you think any of these books I should change the priority on, let me know in the comments below. We then have Daughter of the Forest by Juliet Marilia. This was a recent Discord book club pick. I think it was for May, and I did like it. It's kind of a darker fantasy. It's got folklore inspirations and it was really nice. Like, I really enjoyed it. The writing was beautiful and it is the start of a trilogy. However, knowing me, knowing my mood at the minute, I know I'm not going to continue that trilogy for a while. But I am really pleased I got to this one. This one is a retelling of, I can never remember what it's called, but where you have these 7 children, the 6 brothers get turned into swans by the evil stepmother, and the daughter has to accomplish these series of trials to be able to rescue her brothers. It was really good. I really enjoyed what was done with it, and it really was beautiful, decadent writing. We then have The Witcher series by Andrzej Słowski. I loved this edition. Like, the illustrations in this were gorgeous, absolutely stunning, and I do want to continue on with this series, but again, it's not a high priority. Like, I was interested in it because of The Witcher TV series. Really enjoyed that. The Last Wish is a series of short stories that kind of a prequel to the books, like to the actual series, but this was really good. I really enjoyed it. It's all based on like folklore stories, and you can really see the different inspirations and where it's been changed and stuff, so I did really enjoy this one. I would like to get the next one, which is another short story collection, and then the series start. Ideally, I would like to get the short story collection in this edition, and then the rest of it can be in paperback. It was really beautiful, and I'm really pleased I read it. I just haven't continued on. We also have Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This is his young adult sci-fi, and it's good, it's fine. I've read the first 2 books. I need to get the short story collections to continue on with the 3rd book and the 4th book. I really enjoyed the first book. I thought it was really fun. Again, I just haven't continued, and I don't feel a need to right now, but I also don't want to DNF the series. It will be one that I get to eventually. We have What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I didn't love this one, so I'm a bit hesitant to continue on. This one is a retelling of The House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. Didn't really love that short story, which I read to be able to read this, and this was fine. It was good. Definitely not my favourite of their work, but it was interesting enough that I would pick up the next book. I did like it. It's part of their more gothic leaning works, and I do like T. Kingfisher's works for that. However, I do just kind of prefer if they're standalones, but I will eventually get that second one to continue on with this. We then have Jade City by Fronda Lee. This is an urban fantasy that I read a couple of years ago now, and I liked it enough. I'm still undecided because I have heard really good things about the next book in the series, and it's like this mafia series with this element of jade which gives you different powers. We're seeing this family that are fighting it out with other rivals and stuff, and so I like the concept of it. It's just I'm going to have to be in the mood to continue on, so I haven't decided on a DNF yet. I think I want to give the second book a try before I decide what I'm going to do with it, but I liked it. It was good. It had so much hype when this series was like first coming out. I just haven't continued on with it yet, but I will eventually. The one that I'm actually considering DNFing for sure is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. I loved this book. This was fantastic. This is a young adult book. It is dark and gothic, and it has vampires in it, but it's done in such a subtle way, and I truly adored it. The second book I didn't like. It becomes a lot more expansive. We have a lot more things like beyond just vampires, and it becomes really explicit. It's like she took all of the things that people didn't like about this book and was like, okay, well here's this, and it's so completely different. The third book was okay, but I feel like I know where that 4th book's going, and honestly I'm tempted to unhaul the 2nd and 3rd book and just keep this one because I really enjoyed this one. I thought the atmosphere was really good. I thought the writing was amazing, and it's just such a shame we did such a 180 on the 2nd book, because I thought this was perfect. We then also have House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig. I really liked this one. Again, this is one where it was a standalone. We now have one that's come out, which is the 2nd book in the series. This was a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, and I really liked it. I liked the kind of spooky, creepy ending to this. I thought it was really well done, but I also don't know if it needs a 2nd book. It's probably going to be one that if I see cheap somewhere, I might pick it up and give it a read, but it's not a priority for me to actually continue because I'm really happy with this one being a standalone. But I did enjoy this one. We have these sisters who are slowly being killed off, and they don't know why, don't know how. People just think it's a really bad string of bad luck, like it's really terrible, until one of the daughters realise, oh no, there's a lot more going on, and I really enjoyed this. A manga series is Children of the Whales Volume 1. I read this one, I liked it, but I have other manga series I want to prioritise before continuing on with this one that you've already seen, so eventually when I finish those I might continue on with this one. This one we have this people that live on the back of a whale. The artwork was stunning. And then lastly we have Into the Crooked Palace by Alexander Christo. This is a book my sister gifted to me. It's the start of a series. I don't actually know if the 2nd book is out yet, when it's out, if it was. It's kind of like a, see, I want to say it's a Six of Crows inspired book only because of what I've heard. So I haven't actually read that book, but I've heard of it being that group of people coming together that pull off like different heists and stuff, and that's kind of what this one is. I liked this one. I thought it was really good. We are following a sinister new magic that hits the street. Our 4 main characters have to try and come together to try and combat things before things get too bad. Really enjoyed this. I thought it was really fun. I just haven't seen the 2nd book to continue on with it, and I will get to it eventually, but I'm not too worried, but I also don't want to DNF it. So yeah, there we go. That is all the book series I'm in the middle of. Honestly, if you've made it this far, I am so impressed with you because I have been talking for a while. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please let me know out of these series which ones I should prioritize, what you think are really good, if you've read any of these, or what are some series that you've recently started or DNF'd, or do you even keep track of the series you're reading? Please let me know in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, then just put a book stack emoji because they're everywhere. So if you made it this far and you don't know what to comment, leave a little book stack. Genuinely, I'm gonna say it again. Thank you so much for watching. Like, I am impressed if you've made it this far. But I am going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed this video, please do consider giving it that thumbs up, subscribing, commenting. Those 3 things really help this channel out. My social media links, anyone I've mentioned, will be linked below for you. And I will, of course, catch you in the very next video.